and welcome to All Elite Morro, Monday Night Saviour, the Monday Night Messiah. Not Seth Rollins, Morro. Why? 'Cause Seth Rollins sucks. That's my Seth Rollins bit for today. Let's see. I have an issue here with the stream. It's not connecting to the chat. Well, if I refresh this, is everything gonna go to shit? We're doing it. We're doing it. It's working. It worked. Did it work? Need to move my head around because, cameras in my way and all that kind of carry on. Yeah. How we all doing? Big week of wrestling this week. A lot went down. A lot of major announcements from big wrestling promotions. We get into all that. We had a lot of feedback today on, Instagram. Mark Dowd in with the declaration. Kyle Fletcher is the future of professional wrestling. Mark, me and you are in heavy agreement on that one. Kyle Fletcher is the future of professional wrestling. I would think, he'll get his first world title reign within 18 months, 2 years. And as we often see, the first one it's more of a kind of an establishing world title reign. We were seeing it now with Hangman. We're getting his real world title reign. We saw it with Okada. I think it was Okada's third one, actually. Felt like the real one. See it with a lot of guys. Steve Austin, first one was a bit shaky. But by the time he won it for the second time after Rock at WrestleMania 15, it was like, yeah, this is the guy. So I think Kyle Fletcher gets his first title reign within kind of 18 months, 2 years. But I think within 3 to 5 years, he is going to be the kind of basically top guy in the industry. He's already one of the best in the world. We're in agreement, Mark. Neil says bigger sunglasses. Okay, I'll go on the market. I'll look for some bigger sunglasses. See, some people have started to pick up on it. When I wear the sunglasses, that's when we get heel Morro. I think I have some heel things to say here today. So I opted for the sunglasses. If you've seen the TikTok during the week, internet came after me again based on my comments about Paul Heyman, or as many people were typing in the chat on Instagram and TikTok, Paul Herman. Who the fuck is Paul Herman? The fuck are you talking about? Paul Herman. Also, people called me bald. In case you're unaware, I am extremely aware of my baldness. I've been bald for years now. I think it was 2018 is when I accepted my baldness and went with the buzz cut. Yeah, I like getting abused online. I find it endlessly funny. Me and the lads screenshot all the abuse and send it to each other. And we enjoy it immensely. So, if you're one of the abusers, if you're here today in the chat, abuse me. I'm good with that. Jarbanahan in with, can any city realistically compete with Saudi money for the big PLEs now at WrestleMania? No. Who can compete with them if they're willing to pay? I would have to assume within the region of 100 million for a weekend of shows. So what are they going to get? They're probably going to get SmackDown, probably going to get 2-night WrestleMania, going to get Monday Night Raw, I'd assume, maybe an NXT show. Who can compete with that? Like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, if they wanted to, but they don't. They have no real interest in wrestling. Abu Dhabi's a real UFC city, which I suppose makes it a TKO city. It's an F1 city as well. And they're paying for the F1 finale. They outbid Saudi on the F1 finale. They get the final race of the season. So they've got the money for it. I just don't think they see WWE as kind of being aligned with what they're going for. Yeah, I used to live there. They've got Man City. They've got the F1. They've got 2 UFC shows a year. Can't see them being bothered with WWE, to be perfectly honest. Dubai doesn't have, it's weird. People think of Dubai as being kind of the pearl of the Middle East. It doesn't have the money that Abu Dhabi or Saudi have. Reason being is it doesn't have the oil reserves that either of those two countries have. It has huge amounts of tourism, but like tourism money and oil money, different categories. So where else, like, what other city could realistically have 100 million that they can spend that, like, in the Western world won't cause uproar on the tax base because that's coming out of public funds, tax funds. So it has to be a kind of a monarchical society. Um, and realistically, is there anyone? Azerbaijan, Baku? I don't think they have that kind of kind. Yeah, they have a lot of money. They've got the gas reserves there. No, no, there's no city that can compete with Saudi, and the ones that could potentially compete probably don't want to. I'm worried WrestleMania will wind up like this, Oshin. Uh, Big fan of the show. Thanks, Oshin. You're always here. You better be here now, or else we're gonna have fall now. Oshin's worried that WrestleMania will wind up like big time boxing, where it just goes between Vegas and Saudi. Looking like that. It is looking like that. Um, Scary, scary thought. Like, what made, like, the different locations is what really made WrestleMania. Like, WrestleMania is the big traveling fan wrestling show of the year for fans who want to. Oh, there's chats coming in. The placement of my camera is covering the chat. Actually, hang on. I have my setup wrong. That's why I can't see that. This one. Yeah, put this here. Do Saudis make WrestleMania unattainable for other cities going forward? Oshin's here. Yeah, I think Saudis do make WrestleMania unattainable for other cities going forward, Sean. If they want it every year, if they're willing to pay 100 million or so every year, then who else is going to compete with that? Like, there isn't another city out there who can compete with that. So, yeah, it's a scary thought. Like, when are we going to see? And see, okay, I have a little theory on this. If we've noticed recently, the media surrounding WrestlePalooza is trying to frame WrestlePalooza as a big time wrestling show. As in, like, feeling. I don't think they could ever, given the history, elevate SummerSlam to a WrestleMania level show. They can never do that with, obviously, Survivor Series at Royal Rumble. None of them are WrestleMania. So I think they're creating WrestlePalooza, and they're going to really try and build that up to be a WrestleMania level show, which it probably won't ever get to that. Like, it took them outside of WrestleMania 3. It took them over 20 years to go into stadiums. Like, it takes a long time to build uh, like historical significance around the show. But I think they're trying to fast track WrestlePalooza in that direction in order to be the American WrestleMania, because I think there's a very good chance we see WrestleMania in Saudi for the foreseeable future. And who's going to travel to it? Nobody. And that kind of ties in with what Oshin was saying as well. I think what James Style is saying here, whatever they can do to bleed every penny from the fans. Well, David disagreed with me on Paul Heyman. I saw that, David. I see everything. um, whatever they can do to bleed every penny from the fans. Yeah, and like, Ron, do you think fans are actually going to travel to Saudi to this show? I've been at boxing events in Saudi. The atmosphere is dreadful. Obviously, you can't party. There's no pubs. Now, has been rumors floating around for a long time about them, particularly down on the sea, just across from Egypt, whatever they call that sea down there. That they're opening up resorts that will have bars and that, but that's a flight from Riyadh. You know what I mean? It's not as if you're going to fly in for the weekend to be able to meet up people and have a few pints and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like, Saudi isn't a destination that is going to take in, like, 50,000 Westerners aren't going to fly to Saudi for WrestleMania every year. James Isle Coach says, a great wrestler. Is he a victim of a stacked roster? It's a shame it felt the same in AEW. That's in relation to Andrade. Yeah, we'll have a segment on Andrade and that one, James. So we'll get into that deep on that section. So I have a lot of thoughts on kind of what's best for Andrade. And Ronan, who's in the chat here as well, says very hard to support WWE in any aspect. Currently, the product is stale and dot dot dot. I'm assuming the dot 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 relates to lawsuits and Saudi and like God, they're a company that make it hard to want to give them your money. Um, like it's just they're grimy. I just wanted to follow up on this from last week. Spoke a bit about ratings last week for Dynamite and SmackDown. I spoke about how the kind of universe estimates were changing, and that actually did it. It was the case. The estimates changed, so it looks like most shows are going to be point 0.2 below what their average is in the Nielsen demo ratings. So kind of if you were doing a point 20, you'll now be doing a point 18. They did make changes, and like we've seen that with last week's Dynamite ratings, it increased by 24%, despite the fact that Wednesday was a huge night of breaking news on American TV. It still increased by 24%. SmackDown previous Friday increased something like bonkers. In the demo, I think it increased by 80%. Now that's part of AJ Lee's return. They built that up super well, despite the fact that people like me weren't excited, but they like how they promoted her return was excellently done, and it did get them a big rating. But so they did make a jump, but part of that jump was Nielsen figuring out their new rating standards, and part of that jump is the AJ Lee return. So yeah, WrestleMania 43 in Saudi. I think this is terrible news. Just for basically the pro wrestling fan, the biggest show of the year, something that like a lot of people will always kind of say or want to like get. I know Jared Bannigan's here, but Jared's been to, or Jared was, I don't know if he's in the chat now, um, but he was in the Instagram earlier on. Jared's been to, oh god, a few WrestleManias. Traveled to America. I think he was in like one in Texas. I think he was in one in New York. Um, so like, would someone like Jared then travel to Saudi to see WrestleMania? Um, it's a great way. Like WrestleMania for me, it's something I've always wanted to go to. When I was living in the Middle East, it was obviously really kind of unattainable for me. But with moving home, I was like, right, this will give me the opportunity. End of March, start of April, I'll be able to go to a WrestleMania now that I'm living there. Jer is in there. Um, yeah, that was weird, Jer. Did they kind of say mid 2027? So Jared said in the chat there, I thought it was interesting that they didn't say March, April 2027. So it could be at a different time of the year too. I found that, yeah, I did notice that as well. I thought there was something there about mid-year 2027. So initially what kind of made me think was that they're going to run a WrestleMania in America and then another one in Saudi. But I think the Saudis have gotten much more savvy in the last few years when it comes to international products that they're buying in. When they're buying in stuff now, they're not accepting a lesser version of the product. You know, like 8 years ago, WWE could go, yeah, we'll give you a Royal Rumble. We'll call it the greatest Royal Rumble ever. We'll put 50 people in it, whatever. And the Saudis were just like, yeah, cool, okay, we're getting the greatest Royal Rumble. But it's not, in the fans' eyes, the Royal Rumble. I think the Saudis now are much more savvy about this. And if they're getting WrestleMania, they want WrestleMania, not WrestleMania night 3 and 4, 3 months after the actual WrestleMania took place. They want to have the prestige, particularly with this ESPN deal, of having the WrestleMania. But I did find it funny that it didn't say March, April. Now, the weird thing about that is, actually, in Saudi, March, April is the best time to run something, weather-wise. So the weather over there is pretty nice from October to kind of the endish mid-April. After mid-April, it gets horrific. Even kind of early April, to be perfectly honest. Like when I was working there, we used to get our we're called Easter holidays, but spring break around start of April, and it was always funny if you travelled for that. Let's say you had been there since January, and then weather's lovely, and you go away for 2 weeks for your spring break, and you come back, and all of a sudden the weather is horrifically hot. And it used to happen like, let's get this into the mic, that. So you go away on spring break holidays, and you come back, and the weather's horrific. Um, but having it at a different time, unless they're going to go like October, November, you can't do it outdoor in any time from May to mid October. You could not do it outdoor. Ronan has a great point there as well. AEW could be shrewd and host a big show around the same time to get the jilted indies that put on shows many a week as well as fans. Ronan, they should also do it in New Orleans. New Orleans is the city that was supposed to have Mania, the one that's getting moved or got moved. Was it this year or next year? 2026. I think, yeah, New Orleans was supposed to have next year's Mania. That's now moved to Vegas. And David's echoing the same idea as Ronan there of do a charity show even better. And what I think they should actually do is they should go to New Orleans, whatever the traditional WrestleMania weekend is. Maybe not even book out maybe not book a stadium, but book a big like 20,000 basketball arena or whatever. But I think Tony should book another smaller arena in New Orleans, somewhere like with like a capacity of no more than 15,000. Oh, sorry, 1,500, and just give it to the Indies for the weekend. Tony pays for it. The Indies then book a time slot with AEW. Say we want this time, whatever, and then the Indies can book their own indie talent. Tony's not going to pay for the talent for him, but I think Tony should book the arena for him, small, like the type of things he's running his residencies in. They had the one in Chicago, was cool. They had the one in Philly there with the ECW arena. They did that one in Arlington, Texas. Book something like that size and give it to the Indies. Just here, use that for the week, for 4 days, and we'll put on a festival of wrestling. Could be charity based, David. That would even like turn the screw even more. You get the fans on board. Might become an international destination show where, because like next year they're in Wembley in August, but I do think they should do something around end of March 2027 with the Indies in New Orleans, because that's the city that got screwed the most. Because when they moved it out of New Orleans for Vegas, they said, "Oh yeah, but we're still coming to New Orleans." This Riyadh thing means they're never coming back to New Orleans. This WrestleMania is going to be in Riyadh for 5 years straight. And it's the wrestling fan that's gone. Colin, I think the WrestleMania in Wembley dream is well and truly dead. Look, as a company and as Triple H's ego, he will want to do a Wembley WrestleMania simply to get the stadium record back for Wembley, because they lost the stadium record to the first All In, second really, but the first Wembley All In. Triple H's ego will want that, but TKO don't care about Triple H's ego. They want the money. I wish I had millions I could give him WrestleMania in my backyard. You're going to need about 100 of those millions, David. That's the rumor, is that Saudi have paid 100 million. The other shows are working out at like something like 45 million per show, but they're paying it. But look, if you're WWE, of course you take it. Definitely no for me traveling now, even if it was cheaper. That's Jared, yeah. Aaron says they'll do a Wembley Rumble or SummerSlam to try and appease the Europeans. Yeah, I could see him doing a SummerSlam in Wembley. The problem there, though, is if Tony keeps getting in early with his bookings, like a year in advance, because Tony's like announcing his Wembley shows a year in advance. That means he has the stadium booked more than a year in advance. Are WWE going to run the risk of splitting their audience and not breaking the attendance record? Because what could happen there is, they need 82,000 or whatever it is to have. That's the paid attendance wrestling record in Wembley now. If they, let's say they decide to run a week before, or 3 weeks before All In, a certain percentage of fans will say, "I'll hang on for All In. I just slightly prefer that product," or whatever. and it might mean WWE will end up tapping out at 78,000 or something, which would be hilarious if they ran a show there specifically to break the record and then fell short. I do think if they announced the show for like next June in Wembley, they'd probably break the record. Although, would they? Ticket prices would be insane. But they'd probably break the record if they wanted to. If they wanted to just sell off tickets cheap at the end, I could imagine they'd break it. Um, but yeah, it's shit for wrestling fans. Like Jer says, definitely a no for me traveling now. I've been to Saudi. It's not a great place to travel to. There's not a whole lot to do for someone like me there. Um, it'd be the type of thing. Do you know what you could do if you really wanted? If you wanted to go for like 5 or 6 days, is my recommendation would be flight to Dubai, hang out there for a few days. It's like a 90-minute flight. It's actually maybe a bit less from Dubai to Riyadh. Um, in there for the day of WrestleMania, fly out that night. That's what I did for the last boxing match I went to in Saudi. Was flew in the morning of, got some lunch, went to the boxing, got the late flight home, landed back in Abu Dhabi at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. That's always an option. Do you think AEW should do more residency shows like the Aragon Ballroom and 2300 Arena? Yeah. Yeah. See, the problem with the 2300 Arena is it's an arena that has like super historical significance within pro wrestling, but it's just not a little arena that looks good. Whereas the Aragon Ballroom looked great, and that looked unique. 2300 Arena looked like an indie show, looked like a warehouse. Um, it just doesn't have any unique character aside from the fact that it was the ECW arena. So if I'm doing, I would continue to book residencies, but I would book them in cool looking, unique looking places. The one I really liked was the Collision one they ran in Arlington, Texas. Um, I thought that it looked cool and it was suitable for TV. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about WrestleMania going to Riyadh. It's a shit show and it's grimy and yeah, Ron, it looks like the Top Gear hangar. It does, like I get why they want to do it there. It has historical significance. It's an important part of particularly mine and Ronan's generation of wrestling fans. Um, but it just does look like a hangar. It looks like a warehouse. There's nothing that makes it stand out. Thought fans are kind of getting annoyed by the end of 2300. Yeah, the sock chance and the Fletcher Hangman segment drove me mad. Yeah, that's the problem with residencies as well. That's it. Sean hit the nail on the head there, and kind of Brian was alluding to that as well. Is that 6 is too many, which and was actually 7 if you count the Ring of Honor show. I think 4 is probably the right number because then the fans don't insist upon themselves. Like remember does WWE in France shows recently? People were talking about the crowd, the atmosphere in the crowd. I was like, that's kind of shit. Um, the the crowd to me weren't invested in the wrestling; they were more invested in themselves, and I thought it actually took away from the show a little bit. Whereas if they were popping for the shit in the wrestling, it'd have been cool. And I thought towards the end of the 2300 residency, it kind of felt like that as well. The fans were more interested in popping themselves than taking part, like really getting into the shows. Maybe that's the problem with the booking. Are they back in the 2300 again soon, Sean? I didn't realize that. Yeah, so WrestleMania 43 going to Saudi. It's shit for the fans. It's shit for it's just grimy. Like Saudi hasn't changed. They're in the media trying to say we're part of a societal change in Saudi. There's no societal change in Saudi. They gave women the right to drive there about 9 years ago, I think, maybe 8 years ago. But there's still activists who were arrested before that, like female driving activists who are still in prison. So giving them the right to drive was literally doing that just to kind of be able to say to the Western world, look, we're not behind the times anymore. We're letting women drive. Well, then release the people from prison who were activists for that all along. So I'm not buying that shit, and nobody should buy that shit. The society isn't changing there, and it's not a religious thing because there's other Muslim countries who are far more open and accepting. It's a control thing, and it's crap when companies that you want to follow uh, do that stuff. And like, we can't even really blame TKO for this because Vince started it all. Um, and even when I was in Abu Dhabi, like it's only a few miles from there, uh, like the Saudis were arresting. So a lot of like Saudi citizens fled to Abu Dhabi for like political reasons, but then Saudis got permission to arrest their own citizens in that country to bring them back. And one of the people arrested was a female rights activist. That woman is still in prison. Like that's like 9 years ago. They're going back to the Aragon Arena. The Aragon Arena was class. Sports watching does work, Aaron. It does work. Like Newcastle, City, golf. It's all evidence of that. Saudi have become more and more accepted on the international stage, despite the fact that they killed Khashoggi, the journalist. And the reason that they become more accepted is because sports washing fucking works. Um, and like it's sad, really, and because they've got major boxing events, it's not just wrestling. It's wrestling, boxing. You see Riyadh season plastered over there. I watched Bud Crawford and Canelo the other night. Riyadh season blasted all over the ring. Everybody present, Turkey Al Sheikh, Triple H and Stephanie in the crowd. They didn't have them ringside though. Nick Khan was ringside. Dana White was ringside. Triple H wasn't ringside. Who else was ringside? Mark Wahlberg, Jason Statham, that Mr. Beast dude. So Mr. Beast is more important than Paul Levesque. Roland says the Backlash Puerto Rico fans were hot. Paris wanted to hijack the show. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. That Puerto Rico crowd was so sick. It was so sick. But Puerto Rico's like, they're probably starved or like they're thirsty for big wrestling events. So yeah, sports washing works. WrestleMania is going to Saudi. This fucking guy, Andrade, El Idolo. What a fucking guy! Like you can't like this shit is like Carney. Like it is. Andrade is everything professional wrestler should be. Like he went WWE to AEW, back to WWE, and he's probably going to go back to AEW. AEW's 6 years old, and this guy will be going into his second run there after being in WWE twice. Like you just have to respect it. This is 80s, 90s luchador heaven. I just love that Andrade, and the reports are that he failed a wellness policy. So like steroids or some sort of performance enhancers. And he ghosted WWE, just wouldn't answer the phone. So when he eventually did show up, he just got sent home. He got actually escorted out of SmackDown Arena, and then he ghosted them for like 3 weeks. And then when they finally got him, they sacked him. This guy wanted to be sacked. There's other reports that he was given out like loudly about Triple H and management and booking. He's just the ultimate carny, and you just have to fucking respect it. Like Ronan says, he doesn't give a fuck. Jar says 100% agree the French crowd making it about themselves. Remind you, beach ball period. Yeah, the beach ball shit. Oh, that drove me mad. Sean says AEW in Puerto Rico would be fucking incredible. AEW would run a sick show in Puerto Rico. I would love that. Like the AEW, I think my favorite show of this year. It wasn't the best show of the year. I think the show I enjoyed the most this year because it was a Dynamite and it was 2 hours long. Was the Arena Mexico Dynamite. I thought that was fucking awesome. That's how you go somewhere and kind of respect the local style of wrestling, but also give them your style of show. Like I just love that so much. The crowd were so invested, and even like lucha people were shocked how much of the crowd knew the AEW stuff. This is the most they've done with him since his return. Like you just have to respect Andrade. And what I think about, like, this is something I think about all the time. AJ Styles and Randy Orton are clearly on some sort of performance enhancers. That's just my opinion um, on the eye test. And I'm sure there's many, 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 many more. Um, and Andrade looks like he is too. You know, he's gotten really jacked the last few years. But here's my take on it. It's wrestling. It's fucking wrestling. It's probably safer for them if they are on performance enhancers. Um, because of the levels of injuries they suffer, because of their ability to catch a guy doing a dive, because of their ability to take bumps when they're in better physical condition. And in 2025, like things like steroids, you know, we as wrestling fans have a really weird history with steroids because what we've seen from the kind of real heavy steroid era is a lot of guys dying young, and a lot of that is equated with, or people believe is because of the rampant use of steroids. But like performance enhancing drugs have changed drastically over the years anyway in terms of the levels of safety involved. They're much safer in this day and age than they were in the 80s and 90s. The chemicals and so on that are within them have improved. Um, there is so like what was happening. Like you think that someone like British Bulldog, right? British Bulldog was jabbing himself, getting jacked on steroids, probably taking way too much of it, and so if you're taking steroids, what you're supposed to do aside from that is also you're supposed to take like four other pieces of medication that protect your heart, protect your liver, protect your kidney, while you're on a steroid cycle. And those guys in the 80s, 90s weren't doing that. They were just jabbing in the steroids. And that was what was fucking them up. But now, like, there's a lot of knowledge around the side effects of steroids and other performance enhancers, and they can be administered safely with, like, you take these ancillary medication in order to protect yourself. And Ronan says it there as well. It wasn't just steroids in the 80s, 90s. There was a lot of other shit going into their bodies as well. Mr. Joe Kane. So, like, you're injecting shitloads of steroids, but also you're snorting stuff up your noses. And a lot of guys were smoking crack and all sorts. And so it was a concoction of things. But like 2025, there's a great YouTube channel called More Plates, More Dates, and he kind of delves into, he looks at people and kind of predicts what kind of cycles they're on and so on. Yeah, as Brian says, Bulldog was on. Maybe Bulldog wasn't the right one to pick, but they were all on. No, you know, most of them were on multiple forms of illegal substances in that time period. So like, you know, how much of the deaths are attributed to steroids, I don't know. How much is attributed to a cocktail of everything, then yeah. But like, it's not like wrestling is a predetermined thing. It's not competition. It's not like we're sending these guys out here in a boxing match and allowing them punch each other in the head on steroids, or in MMA and allowing them each other choke each other and kick each other in the head on steroids. I'm in no way in favor of that. And there probably shouldn't be in most sports where there's any physical contact, because, you know, even in soccer, if a guy is on performance enhancers and he's tackling people, leg breaks and so on, baseball, I don't know, fucking let them take steroids and hit that ball a fucking mile. But wrestling, if someone wants to take steroids in wrestling, leave them at it. They're going to look great. They'll probably be fairly healthy if they follow the correct regime with the correct doctor. These guys have the money to do that now as well. Clearly some of the bigger stars are doing it. I always think back to that Scott Steiner story of when WWE asked him to do a steroid test. He said, yeah, no problem. Tell Triple H to pick me up in the limo and we'll go do it together. And he was never asked to go again. He didn't have to do that one. He was never asked to go again. So, like, you know, if people are doing it right, then, I don't know, let them fire away. That's my take on it. But yeah, that was kind of, but yeah, look, Andrade is a legend. Where do you want to see him end up? I think the best deal for Andrade, oh, another part of it actually was, apparently he refused to work any AAA shows. He's a CMLL guy, basically. And he refused to work AAA shows. And that pissed WWE off as well, because, they're after signing this major deal to buy out AAA, a Mexican company, and they have a guy who is... Andrade is a draw in Mexico. A proven draw, actually, in Mexico. And they're probably thinking, he's a guy that we could put at the top of AAA. And he was like, fuck that, I ain't working for AAA. And that pissed WWE off as well. So I think the best landing spot for Andrade would be one of those Hechicero type deals where he's signed to both of them. Andrade for the enhanced games. Yeah, let's see that. Yeah, see, that's what, like, Artenfeld multiple wellness. This is David Ayers. Artenfeld multiple wellness policies and said to WWE, "Are you going to fire me and I'll go to TNA?" Like, yeah, they're not firing Randy Orton. AJ Styles is another guy like that. Guy looks like he's cooking something. Sean says Andrade leaving AEW on good terms is going to lead him doing a dual contract. That's what I want to see. Dual contract to CMLL, which will make him a special attraction in AEW. Having him back in the Continental Classic will be, he remember the Continental Classic he did just before he left. He was amazing in that. That was probably his best thing he did in AEW. Andrade can take over LIJ and New Japan. Well, see, Ronan, I've been thinking about this. Andrade in New Japan right now is actually the best landing spot for him. Because they need top level talent. And there's just no top level talent out there that's not hoovered up by AEW or WWE. And if Andrade is just like, fuck it, I'll go do a year at the top of New Japan, that would be sensational. Now, I think Yuma Anzai, rumours surfacing that he made an announcement saying he was taking a break from All Japan. Super young guy, but extremely talented. Yuji Nagata's a huge fan of him. So Yuma Anzai may be going to New Japan. That's the rumour circulating at the minute. If you could get Andrade, if you could get Yuma Anzai, to have Aaron Wolf coming in January, if that guy is any good whatsoever, New Japan might be in for a good 2026 after a horrific 2025. But that's if you can get Andrade. I don't see it happening. I'd love that to happen. I don't see it happening. I see what Sean said happening being the most likely thing. Of he goes back to CMLL and he does one of those dual contracts between CMLL and AEW. I think that's the most likely thing, because he did leave AEW on very good terms. The door was left open for him. But yeah, this is perfect 90s luchador shit. Like, Andrade never change. I actually think, what year is it? We're in 2025 now. Los Ingobernables are gone though, aren't they? In Japan. They're not gone. He's probably the only legit free agent that could be a threat to ZSJ. That's Sean. Yeah, I see. Like, there is no credible free agents in wrestling. None that New Japan would want to work with. None that's big enough to come in at the top of the company. And that's just like in the arms race between AEW and WWE, it's companies like New Japan who have suffered the most, because there's a race to get talent between the two big companies and to hoard talent. And unfortunately, like, CMLL are insulated because they're just badass. I don't know how they've done it, and they've got Mystico. So yeah, I'd like to see him do CMLL and AEW. All the killers have been snapped up by the big two. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you go back there to 2016, 17, 18, 19. Even look at the independent scene at that stage. Like, even in Ireland, in OTT, like, we were getting like Walter versus Ospreay. Like, insane. Like, that's just not there anymore. And I was always gutted that Walter never did an a New Japan run. Like, he would have been perfect. But now everyone is. What's my thoughts on this AEW MLW partnership that seems to be brewing? Very strange. You know what? It makes sense, because MLW have had a very strong and very rewarding for MLW partnership with CMLL now for a good few years. And the CMLL AEW deal seems to be on exceptionally strong terms. So I'm not surprised to see the AEW MLW thing kind of, there's something seems to be brewing there with MJF's appearances. I know initially, and when MJF signed with AEW, he had time left on the deal he had signed with MLW, and MLW weren't happy about that at all. So there seemed to be a bit of tension. Now this is going back a good few years at this stage, uh, but it's good. It's good as long as WWE or AEW don't treat them like WWE treat TNA. You know, give them a bit of credence. I don't think we'll see any major crossovers. Um, but yeah, I don't like, particularly with the CMLL thing. I think that AEW will want to be fair to MLW, to basically not piss off CMLL. What did you think of the Daniel Garcia heel turn? Do you think this is a full heel turn? Are we being swerved? Is Garcia a double agent at the minute? I'm like so unsure about. Like, I like it, and I do feel like Garcia needed a change. I guess we'll find out Wednesday. I guess we'll find out Wednesday. Because what I feel like we'll know Wednesday, because I think if this is a legit full on heel turn, he's going to murder Matt Menard on Wednesday. Matt Menard is going to do a generational blade job and promo on Wednesday, one that we should be talking about for 15 years, in the vein of hard times, but we probably won't. Brian is all in on Garcia stuff. He's like, for how dead he wasn't dead, but how cold he was starting to get there earlier in the year. Mox has done a tremendous job in kind of heating him back up again. Ronan thinks it feels a year too late. It does, yeah, but also 26. You can have stop-start shit happening. The way he couldn't even look at Menard in the eye was class. Yeah, I think we'll know Wednesday, because I think if the heel turn is legit, he murders Matt Menard Wednesday, and we get Matt Menard cutting a fucking Twitter promo that's one of the greatest promos ever in the history of wrestling, and it's not on TV. And people forget about it in 2 months because it wasn't on TV. That's my worry. I think you're seeing him in a conflicting place, but it'll lead to a full-on heel turn. Yeah, I think it's Daddy Magic is getting murdered, and that's when we'll know if it's a full-on heel turn. Hook joins him as well. I think that'd be good for Hook as well. And I also think that, what I think, we're at a stage now where the Debt Riders are a year old. I think we need some evolution within the Debt Riders. I actually think Chris Statlander should join as well and become like this ass-kicking heel bitch, like, and she should be the one to take the title off Tony Storm as, like, I think she should lose the 4-way at All Out, and that be the catalyst to become a Death Rider, and she should take over the women's division. She should beat Tony Storm in maybe at Wrestle Dream or something, beat Tony Storm in a one-on-one as a heel. And because, Tony's been basically, aside from the Mariah May feud and program where Mariah held the title for a while, Tony's been dominating the division for a while, and that's great. She should be. She is the biggest star in the division by a mile. Not by a mile, because Mercedes is there. But I think Statlander's the one to beat her. And I think you should do it soon, just to give Tony a bit of evolution where she needs to rebuild and chase for a while. Is Yuta getting kicked out? I don't think Yuta's going to get kicked out. I think Yuta's going to turn face and cut his hair and all that stuff. And I think we're going to see Danielson play into that, because Danielson's on commentary now. And Danielson's such a good commentator, isn't he? Fucking hell. I think we're seeing that final... you think we're seeing that final scene from Wrestle Dream come true where the young guys watched on? As in, do you think that Garcia is not a heel and he's going to join with Darby and Orange Cassidy returns to help bury Mox in the coffin? I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. If that Garcia isn't actually, if this is a fake heel turn from Garcia and Orange Cassidy returns at not Wrestle Dream, All Out, and it's Garcia, Cassidy, Darby, and Hook, maybe not as a faction but as faces, taking out Mox in that coffin match. I could see that happening. They were the four, wasn't it? It was Hook, Garcia, Darby, and Orange Cassidy. I love Danielson so much. The way him and Alice interacting, that was great as well. So, do you know what the strength of having Danielson on commentary at the moment is, particularly with this Garcia stuff, because he so obviously loves Garcia. Um, but he's in the booking room. Like, he's one of the guys that Tony converses with on booking ideas and listens to when it comes to ideas. So he has intimate knowledge of the storylines. I've felt for a long time that Shivani, Taz, Nigel even, and Excalibur don't actually know. So they know the story that's been told on screen, but they don't necessarily know the story that Tony wants to tell. So Tony has an idea in his head of what a story is, but that never gets fully over on screen because the commentators aren't framing it the right way or discussing it in the right way. Whereas Danielson is having these one-to-one discussions with Tony. And like, Tony's obviously a super busy guy. He can't have those in-depth one-to-one discussions with everybody all the time. It's just impossible. But so having Danielson on the commentary as a guy who's has intimate knowledge of what's being booked is actually helping get the stories over. And I thought that was the real strength of Forbidden Door. He was able to call the wrestling, but he was also able to give these little tidbits of storytelling as well. So I think, like, him as an addition, it's almost like when Vince was on commentary. Like, Vince, I know Vince gets a lot of stick as commentator, but he wasn't terrible. He just had his whole period where he'd say, "Oh, what a maneuver." But he told the stories that he was like, because he was booking the story, so he knew what story he wanted to tell, so he was able to get it over on commentary. I kind of feel like Danielson can do that the way Vince did, but also he can do the moves shit that Vince couldn't do. And as David Ayres there said, he's been in the ring with a lot of them. So Sean thinks Hook and Garcia go heel. And here's the big one. So does Cassidy. Oh, I've not considered that. Hook, Garcia, and Cassidy become Death Riders. A heel Orange Cassidy. Jeez, Sean, I'm gonna have to think about that for a few days. Like, my initial reaction says, no, it's Orange Cassidy, but because I've never considered a heel Orange Cassidy. But that those guys from the end of Wrestle Dream, the story isn't that they're the ones to take out Mox in the end. Is that since Wrestle Dream, what they've learned is you have to join Mox. I actually kind of love that storytelling as well. Fuck. What does the Orange Cassidy even look? Black denim Orange Cassidy. Jesus, Sean's after blowing minds there. I don't know what a heel Orange Cassidy looks like. I'm excited. Oh, I kind of want that to happen now. Leather jacket Orange Cassidy. Yes. That's like literally not something I have ever considered. Is a heel Orange Cassidy. I kind of feel like I need to see it now. That would be, it could be. Because, like, thing about Cassidy is, like, he gets so much stick online from a certain element of wrestling fans. And, like, to me, it's an acid test of, like, because if you watch the guy, he is incredible. And he's obviously extremely intelligent in terms of he really thinks out these things. It's not, there's a lot of thought behind the character and everything to do with it. Orange Cassidy in a suit, that's disgusting, Ronan. If Mox loses to Darby, though, is he still the leader? Because that's 3 big losses in a row. That's a fair question, too. Like, I think we've seen more murderous elements of Claudio in recent months that could be pointing. Because in some ways, like, a lot of what Mox is doing now is actually babyface behavior. Trying to, like, he's doing nice things for Chris Statlander. But I don't know, like, Mox is just so good at the moment. So good. Like, his character work is top notch at the moment, I think. And it's like that thing of, like, we're seeing him do nice things. We're seeing him, like, trying to get behind Garcia. We're seeing him do good things for Statlander. And it's this thing is like, is this guy going face? Or is this just the perfect heel character who's like, we're also being manipulated by him? Not just Garcia isn't just being manipulated by him. We're also being manipulated by him because we're thinking he's objectively doing a nice thing for Statlander. And I do think that, like, yeah, like I need uh, a Debt Rider badass Statlander and a Tony Storm feud, because I think that would feed generations. Mox beats Darby, he has to. This is the beauty of this match. I feel like both of them have to win. Gabe Kidd will have a big role to play in that as well, and that's where Eddie comes in. I could see that too. Eddie and Gabe Kidd, imagine that. Yeah, yes please. Um, Mox beats Darby, he has to. I also feel Darby needs to win. But, Mox can win this match. And Brian says there, Claudio's the scariest guy in the Debt Riders. Him pushing out Mox would also be class. I agree with that. And I think this could be a chance for Claudio to be pushed as a top guy, faction leader, a central piece of the roster. And I think he would thrive in it. Feels like Danielson on commentary leads to him making the save on Debt Rider member that gets kicked out. So I was actually thinking this when they announced, like, do you think Danielson's going to be full time every week on commentary and doing all the travel and all that? Because I thought the retirement was to spend more time at home. So, with his kids and so on. So I don't know if he's like, but they announced it as he's going to be full time on commentary every week. I think they were the exact words used. Remember a few weeks ago, they brought who was it? They brought someone onto commentary for one night. Oh, Chicago guy, CM Punk's old friend. I'm drawing a blank. Original wrestling podcaster. C starts with a C. CC. I can't think of his name. Colt Cabana. Jesus Christ. Remember that they brought Colt Cabana onto commentary one night, and they instantly had him getting killed by the Debt Riders like 20 minutes into the show. I think it was a collision. When they were doing the Aragon Ballroom residency, and Steel, like that was him, Colt. So what I was thinking was what they should have done actually there was have Colt be on commentary for like 3 weeks, and then murder him with the Debt Riders. Don't do it 20 minutes into his first night on commentary, because I thought like that kind of gives the game away. So I felt like they ran that angle, and they probably had the same thoughts about it afterwards that I did. That, we should have actually had him on him for a few weeks before we ran the angle. So I'm wondering, are they doing this big thing of announcing Danielson on commentary, and make it seem like it's a full-time thing, and then like 3-4 weeks into that, the Debt Riders attack him again, and it becomes kind of the next evolution in that story. And maybe Danielson was never meant to be a full-time commentator. He's only going to be doing it for a month to get this storyline over. Because while I want him to be a full-time commentator, I just don't know if he is going to do the travelling schedule. Although he was in Australia for them last week doing promotion for their next batch of Aussie shows coming up, I think again next February. The beauty of Darby's losses, it don't ever affect his order because he's a lunatic, modern day Tommy Dreamer. Yeah, like it's mad. Darby could lose nearly every match, and it won't affect his overness in the slightest, because he's just so cool that we love him regardless. It's like Mick Foley as well. Tommy Dreamer and Mick Foley, it didn't matter how many times you beat Mick Foley. He still felt like a credible threat, and we loved him, and he was over. So yeah, I think the coffin match is going to be fucking badass. So another thing I want to talk about, Eddie Kingston announcing his return. Really weird. However, a few things about this is it's going against, obviously, WrestlePalooza and WWE. So announcing a return in advance is a good idea strategically in that sense. By the show, Eddie Kingston's coming back. Eddie's loved by the fan base. He's an AEW guy. I know he's not an original, but he's an AEW guy. Similar, like, there's a few guys like Eddie who feel like legit proper AEW guys. Like Swerve is one of them, Hangman's one of them, even MJF is one of them, Danny Garcia is one of them, Darby's one of them. It's weird Mox even feels like that now. Like Mox now, Dean Ambrose feels like another lifetime, doesn't it? That doesn't even feel like the same fucking person. It's mental. Um, Kudos to him. He feels like an AEW guy. Tony Storm, massive swerve here, and Jericho's definitely part of it. Oh God, no, no. Eddie already did his penance with fucking Jericho. Oh, that would be brutal. Unless, okay, I'll accept it on one condition. I could see it happening. I can accept it on one condition, that Jericho's coming back for 1 month to do the job to Eddie Kingston, and that's the end of him in the company. It's a brilliant spot run for Big Bill, and you know what? When they announced this, I was like, "This is such a weird match," but I thought about it, and it makes perfect fucking sense. Big Bill is over. Big Bill is really well liked by the fan base, even though the fan base want to cheer Big Bill, but also they give him the respect of booing him as a heel. He gets put on probably their second biggest show of the year. A show that's been promoted really, really well at the moment. That they've already sold 10,000 tickets for. It's going to do, I think, very good pay per view buys. I think again over 130,000. I think they're going to hit for this, which would be a tremendous success. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I certainly think to break up 120. Um, and Big Bill also, you have Eddie coming back from injury, so a Big Bill match is just naturally going to be slightly slower than the average match, by proxy of him being a big 7 foot dude. So it's a good way to get Eddie back in. And also, Big Bill is a really safe worker, but also a compelling worker. So Eddie's going to have a good match with a safe worker who is consistently credible. Um, and it's a perfect way to bring Eddie back in. Also, we know Eddie's a big, massive fan, mark of 90s Japanese wrestling. And this is the exact type of match that a guy would come back from an injury for. Like, this is exactly how a 90s All Japan star would be brought back from injury. Is like to a T. Some guy would call him out and say, "I know you're coming back from injury. I want the first match." And then that guy would go, "Yeah, I'm not going to be on any of the tour shows. Before the match, I'll show up and fight you at the end of the tour." And usually the star might lose because he's coming back from injury. That's a big thing in Japan. The star loses their comeback match, and the story is because they've been injured. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie wants to do that. If he wants to do that type of story, because like we know he's an All Japan mark. He wears Kawada colors. I love that about Eddie. So I think like strategically, it's a good idea to announce it. I think this is worth a few buys to the company. I think some people buy this just to see Eddie Kingston. Um, I'm not saying thousands or anything, but I think like it might be worth 5,000 buys extra on top of what they're already going to get. And I wonder how quick they'll fold. I wonder how quick they'll fold them into the Debt Rider stuff, because surely Eddie has to have some things to them. MJF versus Briscoe tables and tax match should be great crack. That is going to be. I actually think this pay per view is like, it's one of them times where Tony just goes, "Fuck it, we're just going to throw mad shit on here." And when Tony does that, it generally works really well, like, so I think the MJF Briscoes match is going to be tremendous fun. Hangman Kyle Fletcher, we could be here in a week's time just saying, like, actually Kyle Fletcher's one of the best wrestlers in the world. I've been saying it for a while. I think he's top 3 heel in the world right now. And I think he's going to have an absolute incredible match with Hangman in the main event spot. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing Eddie Kingston back. I love Eddie. I think Edge and Christian and FTR is going to surprise people because FTR have been on their shit recently. The stuff they're doing with Adam Priest and Tommy Billington, it has been excellent. FTR have been excellent now for about 4 months since they went back heel. Yeah, Brian, I actually totally agree with you. The build isn't that good. It's fine. Like, it's grand. Okay, yeah, it's basically boilerplate standard fucking build to a pay-per-view. I'm sure they had other ideas that they wanted to do, but then everyone's injured, so they couldn't do any of the shit they wanted to do. Brodito are in a fucking 14 tag ladder match. Tony's just saying, right, fuck it, we're hooping. That's what he's saying. Right, we've loads of injuries, things aren't good. This isn't the card we wanted to do, so we're just going to stick mad shit on it. It is a ladder match, the Brodito match, isn't it? That's exactly what he's doing, Brian. He's just going, fuck it, let's just throw mad shit on here. Mercedes and Rio is going to be a deadly little match as well. There's just so much madness on this card. Ronan says there, Kingston is the ultimate anti-Cena Lesnar guy. Yes. Yeah, you want to go and watch Cena Lesnar, fine. Fine, go and watch it. I'm over here watching Eddie Kingston do spinning back fists. Doing his crap chops and his crap kicks, but being like the most authentic man in fucking pro wrestling. It is he is just the antithesis of that. He's this realness to him that's can't be faked. What do people think of Dominic Mysterio? Who watched the AAA show? I thought the show in general was fairly shit. But I kind of enjoyed it. I thought the main event with Dominic and Vikingo got off to a really sloppy start. I was like, this is going to be shit. But it actually turned out to be, good. I think, what they're really building to is Triple A Mega Campion Championship match. I hate the way they call it Mega Champion. That's WWE. Fuck those guys. We're getting Dominic and Ray for the Mega Campion Championship at some point down the line. But I think Dominic is probably the best heel on their roster right now, it feels like to me. Can't think of anyone doing work as good and as like shit-eating heel as Dominic. And I think it's good for AAA that he's champion. I'd rather shite my hands and clap than watch Cena Lesnar. There isn't yeah. Cena Lesnar is 2025, lads. Brian says there, I'm happy for Dom and I like him a lot, but it seems like WWE are just jabroniing out AAA, same as TNA. Yeah, they are. It's this Friday night, actually. MJF is going to go to Arena Mexico and he's going to eat shit and get pinned or tap out to Mystico. That's this Friday, I think, isn't it? 19th yet. It's mad that the Mexican crowd love Del Rio so much they turn on Vikingo and now Dom is the champ. Yeah, they can't have Del Rio back, can they? That would, in my mind, be a terrible, terrible idea. But look, WWE are trying to sell this as traditional lucha. Traditional lucha doesn't have a lot of run-ins in the main event. Sometimes traditional lucha will do that, but in general they don't. But if they're doing that, it'll be in a La Parca style brawl match with loads of blood, or not in this type of match that they were kind of wrestling like a lucha match until the crappy ref bumps and all. But at the same time, I actually thought the match turned out kind of good. The show itself was easy to watch. It wasn't like terrible or anything. The show itself was fine. But yeah, I just think Dom will do great business for them as well. And that's the end of today's show. I'll make an announcement later in the week. I'm thinking, in this exact setup and scenario, I might do a watch along with All Out Saturday night because it's 8 p.m. Irish time. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's feasible yet. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing it. So that'll be 8 p.m. Saturday night. Watch along for All Out. I think it'll be good cracks. I think that card is just going to be great crack. Traditional luchas out ones in the front row getting kicked in the head and spitting on people. They have to be spitting on the heel or the rudo. They have to be spitting on the rudos, or else it's not traditional. So yeah, let me know if you want to do watch along. If you would tune in for even 10 minutes of a watch along on Saturday. I'm hoping to be able to watch it live. If I'm able to watch the show live, I'm definitely going to do a watch along. We had wrestling promos came out on the channel this week. Me, Shane, and Brian Maxwell. That was super fun. Brian was down promoting his deadly new comic book, wrestling comic book. Check that out. Brian's over on Instagram. Type in Brian Maxwell. I had it written down here, but I can't find it. So check that out. So the rest that was good fun. The wrestling promos one. That's where I said Paul Heyman hasn't been good in a decade. Even some people in here disagreed with me. Some All Elite Morro guys disagreed with me on it. I knew that was a spicy hot take. I had the shades on. The hot take was always coming. I hadn't even been cooking it up. It just came to me in an instant. I kind of said it before I even realised I said it. But I enjoyed the response to it. And then I have Total Extreme Morrow coming out on Wednesday. That is episode 3. Episode 4 is recorded. And episode 4, I'm not giving away any spoilers, but episode 4 of Total Extreme Morrow, coming to 27th of September, is utterly heartbreaking. Utterly heartbreaking. So if you're enjoying that, stick with it, because episode 4, you see a broken man before you on the screen. It's all gone to shit. Episode 3 was good. Episode 2 was too long. I know that. It's 2 hours, 12 minutes. I'm back to getting them down to an hour. But episode 3 was good. Episode 4, in my opinion, might be the best work I've ever done on the internet. So that's Wednesday week. It's recorded. It's edited. I can't even look at it. I can't even look at the pain. But thank you for sticking with me today, with loads of viewers. F4 is 4 hours long. No, Ron, I've got them. I just got lost in that Super Brawl build. I just got lost in it. I got lost in the game. That happens sometimes. For any fans of Football Manager and that, you'll know what it's like as well. You're looking at lads whose contracts are up in 6 months' time, and 5 hours goes by. That's what happened to me in episode 2 of Super Brawl. But episode 4 is just horrific. I'll be promoting that again next week. Okay, thank you everybody. I might do the Saturday night stream. I'll stick shit out on Twitter, and I'll get Shane to put posts on Instagram and that as well. I think it's feasible. Football Manager is so time consuming. You know, I took months off work last year. I finished up a job that I'd been doing for 10 years, and I got a little bit of, not a major payout, but I got enough money. And I said, you know what, I'm going to do another college course. I'm going to take 9 months out. I did the college course and I finished it, thank God. But, oh my God, the amount of Football Manager I played was chronic. So I'm trying to stay away from it. Yeah, thanks everybody. Might see you Saturday night. All Out. That'll be fun. And enjoy wrestling this week. Peace.